A little background on myself. I have been an immersive designer since predating XR technology. And I actually, I was born into the circus, so immersive design is something that I feel very close to. And I got a degree in multimedia immersive design, sorry mom, and then all of a sudden, when XR was presented, I jumped on it. And since then it has been an amazing roller coaster ride, and by that I mean highs and deep lows, because the startup industry in America is so hyper competitive. I feel like it's strangling innovation, and so I'm so glad to see the support that Immersive Technologies are getting from the government here. I had a company for a moment that built interactive performance technology, but now I'm applying that to the med tech industry, creating immersive worlds for live therapists and patients to connect inside. And actually, we're finding through research at UCLA, it actually can speed recovery much faster for certain populations. So, without any further ado, let's hope that all of this tech is going to work. As you can see, we are working with 1970s technology of the green screen. Soon this will be obsolete by depth sensors. It's just not quite stable enough to show you all. How are we doing there, Jack?
Great.
Fantastic. Can we bring it up on the side screen there? And let's begin. So I will be communicating to you from another reality. So it's very hard to switch between the two. We've created this tool in collaboration with a company called Sketchbox, which is going to mix the realities, using the technical term, believe it or not, so we can see that before you. Sketchbox is a fantastic new software. We've never used it in this way before, so you are seeing the world debut. All right, let's begin. So I want to talk about the first immersive technology, and I would agree that it is the brain. Everyone has one of these, obviously, and so I'm going to just borrow some. Mark, can I borrow your brain, please? Thank you. So let's do a little bit of neuroanatomy, and I'm going to do a massive oversimplification. I apologize for this, Jack. So you'll see here's the cortex, but I'm going to go a little bit deeper. You see, we have these two sub-brain structures. Right here, this is what is known as the brain stem. This controls the fight or flight response and adrenaline. It also controls how you breathe and how your heart and your blood is pumping. Now, this is called the limbic system. Now, the brain stem was developed a very long time ago. This is what's called the lizard brain in prehistory. Hi, how you doing? Gotta keep remembering to do that. So the limbic system was developed as the mammal brain. You would think of probably a wolf, or it's the emotional brain. So they've got these two sensors right here. This is the amygdala, which is the emotional sensation of fear, and then it also controls how dopamine is processed through the system. So finally, of course, we have our old friend the cortex here, and you can see how large this is. Most of this is used for socializing. So that's why something like this is so incredibly addictive. I could take the one out of my pocket, but I like this one. Most of these areas are developed for massively being attuned to our fellow humans. And that is in ways that we're not even conscious of. That includes chemicals that are being released at all times. That includes your biometrics. That means specifics of how you move and how you breathe. And then finally, but before we move on, this is what's known as the ape brain. So like if you've seen a chimpanzee ever scrolling Instagram, that's perfect. It's a one-to-one connection. Now what we have different than chimpanzees is something really hidden high up in here. This is called the Frontal Cortex. And this is something unique to humans. What that allows us to do is transpose ourselves into entertainment. That's why movies are entertaining to us. If you showed, let's say, Bridget Jones' Diary to a chimpanzee, he would not be interested. I wouldn't be interested either, but he would not be interested because you can't follow a character. But the chimpanzee brain is for empathizing, for cleverness. It's not about compassion, it's about what do you know about me so that I can raise my dominance in a tribe, etc. Okay. So I'm now going to take you on a journey through time and space, and we're going to take, I actually am going to agree with the good doctor before me. I do think that the very first immersive technology is the epic poem. And that technology includes, oh, am I there? Yeah, perfect. And that, close enough. And that includes the oral tradition. The oral tradition is epic poetry. Is it looking weird? Okay, too distracting. Got it. The epic, oh, that's right. The epic poem is how we passed on information for all of human history until, well, until this guy. It's actually kind of interesting because Homer, the poet Homer, we have as the first vocal record that comes from the oral tradition, but we actually have it written down. So I see immersive technology as almost a prism. The pure light of the immersive experience of what we saw in, let's say, the tribal oral tradition in Stonehenge gets split when information technology hits because of the issues of scalability, and I'll get back to that. But the first to peel away becomes the information technology of writing. And so we have Homer's epic poem, and where I'm going to set a precedent now that we're creating a split. Immersive technology is pulling away from that immersive experience at all times, and in immersivity, we have the development of Greek theater, and that Kyrie Dionysos, plink, plink, plink. Thank you, that is an authentic recreation of Greek music. Okay. Next, we head to those famous culture stealers, the Romans. So, yeah, Roman theater is fine, it's great, but they had an innovation as far as, I mean, information technology, of course, unparalleled as far as engineering. They did create one immersive development that is unforgettable, and that is, let's see if we can head through Rome. Sorry, Augustus, excuse me. Where are we? Oh, yeah. Oh, God, right in my face. Okay. Let's see, I want to just head through the... Oh, boy. Oh, God, what's back here? I don't need a ticket. There we go. Okay. So, the Colosseum was the immersive design that was the Romans really perfected. And we think of this today with our modern sensibilities as pretty horrific. What is the camera? Oh, you are the camera. Hi. Again. Hi. We think of it as violent and horrific. It's awful. But I want to pose something to you. I just saw John Wick 3 last week. Anyone see that? Yeah, action movies obviously are going to pull you in. However, if John Wick was a live feed from a real event that was happening in real time, like the news, we would be horrified. Now, a Roman, what the heck is that? Oh, sorry, they're fighting back. Stay back, foul fiend. Okay. A Roman would say, what's the difference? You like yours fake, we like ours real. Just something to think about. Okay, so next we're going to head to the Dark Ages and talk about information technology, because there wasn't much of it. It was mostly guys like this, toiling away and transcribing these. Great, what's this guy working on? Can you get a look at that? Oh, it's some kind of emblematic thing. So this is also the beginning of cryptography, because a lot of the wisdom from, of the ancients had to be hidden. Ooh, pulling in and out. It's still difficult, guys. I've been practicing this for a long time, and it's still really hard. Okay. Next, let's... Oh, wait, I wanted to talk about where immersive design was at this point, and actually, immersive design went on the road. So if we see what this guy's writing about, it goes in the form of commedia dell'arte. So all of those actors from that terrible Roman theater, they went on the road, and they started working as an informal news service for people around the world, bringing this very developed form of interactive entertainment. All right. Let's head over to the globe. And, oh, sorry, excuse me. I don't need I have a ticket. I left it somewhere else, sorry. Let me just, I got away from that guy. Okay. So, in case you think I'm pandering here, I almost put a TARDIS that I was traveling with. So this is not pandering, okay, guys? The Queen, of course, and her cartographer, John Dee. She was a patron of his. He was working at the time with the information of navigation. So being able to spread information now to other continents, not only on continent, and also cryptography really hit its heyday in that all of the information needed to be coded and hidden. All right, let's get out of the globe and head to the 17th century. There we are. All right. Fake walking, okay. Are you convinced? There we go. All right. So I want to talk about Blaise Pascal and Leibniz. At this point, we were starting to get the idea for what future computing would be, but their electricity didn't exist, and so creating computing on a massive scale wasn't possible. It was all theoretical at this point, except for Blaise Pascal had a mechanical calculator, which I guess the textures didn't work, but it's wooden and very beautiful. Sorry about that. All right, so that was the first part of human history. In the second part, we start to really pick up the pace of information technology because of the Industrial Revolution. And that's where we really start to see immersive design on a massive scale, not just for the very rich, but for all kinds of populations. All right, so let's start with Freud here. Freud, of course, came up with the theory of the unconscious at this time, which really even changed how we think about thinking and think about the unconscious. I'm actually more of a fan of Jung. Is anyone familiar with C.G. Jung? Yeah, of course. See, I think mostly, we know what Freud was interested in. He just thought that it was all about whatever. So I prefer the world of Carl Jung. Carl Jung, he proposed an archetypal consciousness that we all shared. And this is interesting to me. When he comes up with this idea of the subconscious, the idea is that, I want to say this correctly, myths are public dreams. And so he proposed that you take the information from your life and you assemble it into your own private dream world. And he actually, as you see in some of these, he created his own private dream world in the Red Book, which was actually so secret that he kept it closed for 50 years. He said no one could open it until 50 years after his death. And they only opened it in the past, I think it was 2009, I could be wrong. And there's this wealth of incredible mystical technology. And so, what he proposes is that everyone has a mythic consciousness. Everyone sort of has their own myth that they're living in this kind of, a magical world that is their own story. And a lot of XR developers say I'm a storyteller, but everyone's a storyteller. We're constantly telling stories. We can't stop telling stories. And we have these archetypes. In fact, we have the archetype that relates to the, is this going to come with me? It doesn't matter. Let's say the holy serpent, or Kundalini, or the dragon. We create fairy tales about the wolf. We also create legends of trickster gods that that are about using intelligence and also facing the darkness inside of us. Now, this isn't necessarily specific to one person. We all share and live these private lives. We keep them secret. and just like Jung did. Because, okay, I'm just going to move on to the next thing. All right, let's head to the Industrial Revolution. What do you say? Now, at this point, just at the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, information technology was in an interesting spot. We had Babbage's analytical engine, which you can see here. It's very complicated. And at the time, we were actually being able to reproduce lithographs as well as printing. Let's see, early virtual reality technology had just come about. So, you know, just by putting a stereoscopic camera and taking a photograph of, can you see this? Right there. Yeah. You could have the experience of being there in 3D. Hold on. Oh, let me try this out. Hold on. Oh, I got this. Whoa, you guys got to try this out. Okay, sorry. Oh, and then there were other forms. There was early animation, early 3D films using this stereoscopic box that, yeah, oh, also not fake that I can't really see anything. Okay, the next part of immersive design, I think, goes to opera. Opera, at this point, especially what some would argue is the heyday, was the work of Wagner. That's his name. Wagner. He specifically came up with a word called Gesamtkunstwerk, which is a mouthful, but it means a total work of art. And I feel like that's really the first time we have a word, just like immersive is a catch-all today, we have a word that describes what these kind of experiences are. Oh wait, let's see. I didn't hit that. I didn't think I could hit that. No, that's great. Okay. And then finally, as far as immersive design on a massive scale, I do want to put into account the American Circus of Barnum and Bailey was actually incredible. I have a double life, which I don't tell everybody, but because I'm a performer today, I can. I'm a ringmaster of an immersive historical circus that recreates 1880s Barbary Coast, San Francisco. See? Okay. So that's just a little plug. If you ever make it to San Francisco, look me up and I can give you a discount. Okay. Finally, not finally. Now I want to talk about the beginning of real computing, the actual beginning of it. And that would be with, it's all due to this, the Enigma machine. And this is what Bletchley Park was created to defeat. And but I'd never actually seen one up close, and I thought that was pretty interesting. Finally, immersive design at that time is moving in an interesting way. You know, we've got like Disneyland, and really that's sort of the achievement of Imagineering, which was a word that Disney coined. It was this sort of, well, it's really raking in the bucks now, isn't it? I think he did something right, because it was the first time we thought of production along every step of the way for an immersive experience, and licensing from that, and creating sort of a nostalgic world that you could make people live inside of their myths. I believe that was his point. Now, it was a little bit saccharine, and I think that was because it was on the background of the Cold War, and I think that probably tuned what they were thinking about. But in any case, finally we get to the world of cinematography. Now, I think it's really, really interesting that the first VR, can I get in there with him? Hey there, Stanley, there we go. Oh, good. The dailies look good. What I think about cinematography, and I think about these particular technologies, in that we are at a time right now where we are dealing with this new media technology in the same way that we did when the camera was invented. We didn't know what to do with it. Edison would make the first films that were, sneezes. Go ahead and explore some. I'm going to talk for a second so you can look around a little bit. We didn't really know how to project a story on stage. Méliès would make these films that looked like a play set. And it was about 20 to 30 years after the technology that was invented did we only learn how to create a story that will work with the human brain to connect those different shots and make them into one immersive whole. Now, what I'm saying is information technology gets better and better and better. It's all getting closer to coming back to that original oral tradition. Am I making sense? Good. And let's bring us into the future. So I have the privilege to attend all of the XR events in California. There are a lot of them. And right now, especially at this moment in time, thank goodness, there is a red flag is going up about ethics when it comes to XR technologies. Anyone familiar with the Oculus Quest? It's a VR headset? Yeah. So it's the first standalone VR headset, which is called with 6 DoF, which means that it's not a 360 headset. And that's a game changer. It's an incredibly popular product, and it's sold out in the first 2 days, which is finally good for the VR industry, which has been having a hard time finding its traction. However, we now have the company with the absolute worst record for privacy now in charge of a device which has the unprecedented ability to gather more data about you than any other in history. So I don't want to be a scaremonger, because obviously we're all here for the right reason. We're here because we believe in building an ethical future for XR. Unfortunately, I think the States is ahead by a step in funding and development, but a step behind in ethics. So I'm really glad to see Leeds leading the way in this direction. All right, let's do a little bit of future prediction. All right. So let's say in the future that I'm using my personal AI, and my assistant is helping me bring up certain UI VR elements that are specifically designed for me based off of the data that this is the Magic Leap headset, one that just came out. Obviously, in the future, we'll be using something a little more developed than that. But as you can see, there's a security ball around you at all times. I'm trying to visually represent that, because the internet is as we've learned in the past, I don't know, 5 years, 3 years? How long have we been terrified now? With the Cambridge Analytical scandal, we're finding that social media has an unprecedented amount of data on us. Like, for instance, have you ever noticed when you're talking about something with somebody, sometimes a product relating to that conversation will show up on your phone? So they assure us, and I believe them, they assure us that our phones are not listening to us. The truth is much more terrifying than that, actually. The truth is that they are keeping what they call a voodoo doll, a simulation of us at all times, and that simulation is predicting what we will buy. So, I guess I actually have an example that my friend Robert recently bought some elephant dung paper for a history of print conference, and now whenever he signs in online, all he sees advertisements for is elephant dung. So what I'm trying to say is, these models are as effective as they are now. They're terrible. What will happen when we give them more data so they can get really, really defined? What happens when there are sensors, which just was released for the Vive headset, that record your eyes and your biometrics? All of a sudden, we're getting to a future where the advertising companies know what you want better than you do yourself. So, in this future also, I want to talk about screens. Now, screen actually means separation. That's the etymology of it. You are separated from this immersive world that is all around you when you put your phone down. Now, there are 2 kinds of chemicals for happiness. The first one is dopamine, right here. The second one is serotonin. And they're both to make a distinction made by a doctor named Robert Lustig, there's a separation. Dopamine is a chemical for pleasure. Serotonin is a chemical for happiness. So dopamine is sparked by food, sex, any short-term reward, and it rewires your brain. Gambling and social media. Serotonin can only be made in conjunction with collaborating with your community, doing social good, helping your family, giving hugs. It's actually kind of amazing. The serotonin is what actually balances that happiness. Now, we cannot stoke serotonin with this separation technology. Where am I? I've totally lost where I am. There we go. We cannot, we can't, but we're getting to a point where in this new WebXR 3D world, where let's say we can create our own reality. There we are. Let's say your browser is now like your car. I want you to remember that you've got these 3 other brains. You've got these 3 other passengers on your road trip with you. You've got a lizard brain, you've got a wolf brain, and you've got an ape brain, all going along with you. So if you are taking, for instance, a mean tweet or a hateful comment on Facebook, let's say somebody sent that to you, that's going to send chemicals coursing through your body. Now, we have not neurologically escaped the food chain. We still have our nervous systems wired for that. So if you get that hateful comment, your body is going to react like you're being pursued like a lion on the savannah. So what I'm hoping, and what I'm really hoping for the future, is that when we get XR technology to be as easy to use and immersive as standing in this room and talking to all of you right now, that if someone were to send a hateful comment and then instantly be in that room with that person, looking at their face, smelling the pheromones they're releasing, would they be able to say that hateful comment to your face? Some awful people would, but I think overall, I think that's the first step to solving the social problems related to technology that we are careening into. And I want you to imagine that if we were to travel back in time to 2007, on stage with Steve Jobs holding up the iPhone, if we could just say, hey, everyone stop, listen, sorry, there's going to be some problems with this really bad in about 10 years, so here are some concerns. If we don't think of that now, we are headed for a future in 10 years where it's complete dystopia. In fact, I was invited by the festival Boomtown. Anyone know Boomtown? No? In Winchester. It's great. It's the largest immersive event in the world. I think it's 80,000 people. You really should check it out. But I was asked to make an immersive Black Mirror episode. And I set the choice between people. I would give them this perfect VR world where they were the influencer, they were the star of their own WebXR feed. All they had to do was sell out their friends. And everybody did it. It was terrifying. It was absolutely terrifying. So again, I want to thank all of you for being in this room. I'm so glad that we are having this discussion, and I'm really excited that the future of XR is more human, more compassionate, and more fun than we've been able to have with information technology before. So let's take a trip down the information superhighway. Oh, wait, there we go. There we go! All right. And using brachiation to bring us to the city of the future. Will your textures work? Yes, they will! All right, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you to Paul for running tech.